Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at kind of the future of business and how companies can really thrive,
Right.
not even just survive, but really thrive in
Yeah.
this like super fast-paced world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this awesome article here called "Embracing Transformation,"
Yeah.
which was published just earlier this week.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find some really incredible insights in here.
I think of that too.
Some of the things that I'm really excited to dive into
Okay.
are, I really liked how they talk about how every employee can kind of become like an ambassador for the company and really turn
Flavor.
customer requests and things like that into these shining moments.
It's so important.
Yeah. And also how leaders really need to be more than just like
Yeah.
technical experts. They kind of need to be like visionaries.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And then one of the other points I thought was really interesting was how they talk about the importance of internal innovation
Right.
and how if you rely too much on like outside sources,
Yeah.
that can actually make you less adaptable.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. What do you think? Ready to
Okay.
jump in?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So embracing transformation. Right off the bat, they're talking about this really
Yeah.
fundamental shift
Yeah.
that businesses need to make. And it's kind of like moving away from just purely thinking about production
Yeah.
and moving towards this like customer-centric approach.
Right. And this article really emphasizes that, like, deeply.
Yeah.
That it needs to be at the core of everything a business does.
Yeah.
Not just like a side thing.
It's not just like a marketing campaign.
Right. Exactly. It's like a fundamental shift in how you think about your business.
They had this one line that I thought was really cool. It said,
Oh, yeah.
every interaction is a chance to build trust and deepen relationships.
That's so true.
And when I read that, I was like, man, that's powerful. Like, imagine if you went into every interaction with a customer
Yeah.
thinking that this is my chance to build trust.
Absolutely.
Like, what kind of impact would that have?
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it that way, it
Yeah.
changes everything. And the article really stresses that it's not just like the customer service department's job, it's
Right.
everyone's job.
Yeah.
Like everyone from the engineers to the accountants to the,
It's janitor.
yeah, everyone needs to see themselves as an ambassador for great customer service.
Totally makes me think of that company Zappos.
Oh, yeah.
They're like legendary.
Yeah, for their customer service.
It's not just a department there. It's like it's their whole culture.
It's baked into their DNA.
Yeah. Imagine if every company was like that.
The world would be a better place.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they get into this whole thing about leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. Leadership is so key
It is.
in this whole transformation process.
And they're saying it's not enough to just be like a technical expert anymore.
Yeah.
You got to be like a visionary.
You have to see the big picture. You
Yeah.
have to understand like business strategy, market dynamics, customer needs.
Yeah. It's almost like they need to be business anthropologists.
Haha, I like that. Business anthropology.
Right. Like they have to really understand
Yeah.
all the different factors that are at play.
All the moving parts.
Yeah. And it's not just enough to like be good at what you do.
Right.
You got to understand how it all fits into this larger
The bigger picture.
ecosystem.
Big ecosystem.
Exactly.
And I thought it was cool that they acknowledged that.
What that? Not every leader is going to like come fully equipped
Of course not.
with all these skills,
Right.
but they really push the idea of continuous learning,
Yeah.
even at the top.
Lifelong learning, it's essential.
It is, and it's so important because the world is changing so fast.
It's changing faster than ever before.
And to stay ahead, you've got to be constantly learning and adapting.
You got to be agile. You got to be flexible.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to embrace new ideas.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into their next point, which I thought was super interesting.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It's about investing in your people.
Yeah. Investing in your team.
But not just in terms of like giving them the right skills,
Right.
but also giving them the knowledge
Uh-huh.
to understand like the financial side of the business.
The financial literacy, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
A lot of companies overlook that. They just expect people to kind of like figure it out on their own.
Right. But this article is saying, no, you need to actually give people
You got to give them the tools.
and the knowledge to understand
Yeah.
like cost capacity, profitability.
And how it all works together.
Yeah, because when you understand that,
When you understand the financials.
it's like you say, it's like giving everyone a mini MBA.
Exactly.
And when you have that knowledge,
Yeah.
your day-to-day work takes on a whole new meaning.
Absolutely. It's not just about like punching the clock anymore.
Right.
You see how your role actually contributes to the company's success.
Yeah. And that's empowering.
It's incredibly empowering.
And when people feel empowered, they're more likely to be engaged.
Absolutely.
They're more likely to be innovative,
Innovative,
work committed.
innovative, yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like a win-win all around.
It's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, and then they get into this whole thing about internal innovation,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was really fascinating.
That's a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that.
Well, the article makes this really interesting point
Okay.
about the dangers of relying too heavily on external sources for innovation,
Interesting.
like consultants agencies, things like that.
Yeah.
And they argue that companies that do this, they actually risk becoming
Or,
less adaptable
Mm,
and less independent in the long run
that makes sense.
because they're not building up their own internal capabilities. Yeah, they're kind of like outsourcing their creativity.
Exactly. They're outsourcing their ability to solve problems.
Right.
And that can be dangerous.
It's like the difference between buying pre-made cookie dough
Uh-huh. Okay.
and creating your own recipe from scratch.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Go on.
Like, you might get a quicker result with the pre-made stuff,
Sure.
but you'll learn so much more.
Yeah,
And the final product is way more satisfying
absolutely.
when you create it yourself.
There's a sense of ownership when you innovate from within.
Totally. And it's not just about the final product.
Right.
It's about the
The
process.
process, the journey.
Yeah, and the learning that happens along the way.
That's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, and so this article is really advocating for building those internal capabilities
Yeah,
and fostering a culture of continuous improvement.
absolutely. It's about creating an environment where people are encouraged to experiment,
Yeah,
to take risks,
to fail.
to
right.
learn from their failures,
And to share their ideas.
and to collaborate.
Yeah.
Because that's how you create a truly innovative culture.
And then they have this really interesting section about the CEO.
Oh, yes, the CEO.
Yeah, and they kind of describe the CEO as this bridge.
A bridge.
Yeah, like a bridge between the external world,
yeah.
like all the things that are happening outside the company.
Like global trends, customer needs, competitive landscape.
Yeah, all of that.
Okay, I see where you're going with
And
that.
the internal workings of the organization.
So they're like a translator.
Yes, exactly.
Taking all those big, complex ideas from the outside world and distilling them into actionable strategies for the team.
Yes, I love that.
That's a great way to think about the role of the CEO.
And it's not just about like coming up with the strategies.
Right.
It's also about executing on them
Absolutely. The CEO has to be both a strategist and an executor.
and inspiring others to do the same.
Yes. Inspiration is key.
It is. And so they're saying that great CEOs are not just strategists,
Right.
they're also executors.
They make things happen.
Yeah, and they bring people along with them.
They rally the troops.
Yeah, and it's not about sitting in a corner office making decisions.
Yes.
It's about being out there in the trenches
Yeah.
with the team.
Leading by example.
Exactly. And then this next part I thought was pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like a little reality check.
A reality check.
Yeah, they basically say,
What do they say?
don't get too caught up in appearances. Like they specifically call out those like flashy presentations
Oh, yeah.
that are all style and no
No
substance.
sizzle, no steak.
Exactly. And they're basically saying like,
Yeah.
don't be fooled by the smoke and mirrors.
Right.
Real progress comes from asking tough questions,
Yeah.
challenging assumptions,
Absolutely.
and like getting your hands dirty.
It's about getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, and not being afraid to have those like
Yeah.
difficult conversations.
The tough conversations, the uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's how you get to the heart of the matter.
That's how you find the real solutions.
And then they have this one line that I thought was really interesting.
What's up?
It said, one of the most powerful ways to learn is by teaching others.
Oh, that's so true.
Isn't that cool?
It is.
And I was like, man, I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's so true.
It's like when you try to explain something to someone else,
Yeah.
you really have to understand it yourself.
Yeah, and you have to think about it
You have to think about it in a different way.
in a different way.
You have to come up with different ways to explain it.
Yeah, and you have to anticipate their questions.
And their objections.
Yeah, and so it really forces you to like go deeper.
It forces you to master the material.
Yeah,
And that's how you really learn.
I love that. And then they talk about celebrating individuality.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, and how not everyone thrives.
No, everyone thrives under the same expectations.
Exactly. And trying to fit everyone
Trying to fit everyone into the same mold.
is just setting everyone up for failure.
Exactly. You got to let people be themselves.
Yeah, and play to their strengths.
Play to their strengths.
And embrace their unique perspectives.
Absolutely, because that's where the real innovation comes from.
Yeah, so this article is really packed with insights.
It is.
And it's really challenging me to think differently
Yeah.
about how we approach business.
It's a real mind shift.
It is.
It's about moving away from those rigid, outdated models.
Yeah.
And embracing a more human-centered, adaptable approach.
Totally. And it's not just about staying afloat.
No,
It's about building something meaningful,
right.
something resilient.
Something that lasts.
Yeah, something that's built to last.
Exactly.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's still so much more to unpack in this incredible article.
There is.
So we'll be back in a moment to dive even deeper into these ideas
Sounds good.
and explore some specific examples that bring them to life.
I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. So we were talking about this idea of like shifting from a like production first mindset to one that's all about the customer.
Yeah, a real customer-centric approach.
Yeah. And they gave this really great example in the article
Oh, yeah.
about like how we view customer requests.
Okay.
So like imagine a customer comes to you and they're like,
Uh-huh.
hey, we need you to change the production schedule or something.
Right.
In a traditional like production first environment
Yeah.
that's seen as like a wrench in the gears.
A pain, a hassle.
Yeah, like, oh, this is going to mess everything up.
Right. We got to redo the whole schedule.
Yeah, but this article is saying like flip that on its head.
Okay.
Instead of seeing those requests as a burden,
Yeah.
see them as opportunity.
Opportunities to do what?
To shine, to go above and beyond for the customer.
Oh, I see. So instead of just like grudgingly making the change, you're
Mhm.
like, okay, how can we exceed this customer's expectations?
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, it becomes a chance to showcase your flexibility,
Uh-huh.
your commitment to customer satisfaction.
Yeah, make them feel really valued.
And then that builds trust and loyalty.
Right. Which ultimately is what every business wants.
Exactly. It's like a win-win.
It is a win-win.
And then they were talking about how leaders need to kind of like step up their game.
Yeah, leadership. That's so important.
It is. And they were saying it's not enough to just be a technical expert anymore.
Right.
You've got to understand like the whole business strategy.
The market landscape.
Yeah, all of that stuff.
The big picture.
The big picture. Yeah, and this made me think about like Company X's CEO
Oh, yeah.
who like foresaw that whole shift to industry trend
Right.
years ago.
Years ago.
And like that's visionary leadership.
It is.
They didn't just react to it.
They anticipated it.
They were ahead of the curve.
And they positioned their company for success.
Exactly. And I thought it was really cool that the article acknowledged that not every leader is going to like naturally have this
Yeah.
wide-angle
Of
view.
course not.
But they really encouraged leaders to seek out training, mentorship, self-development.
Right. To develop those skills.
Yeah, like it's a muscle.
Yeah.
You got to keep exercising it
To stay sharp.
to stay relevant.
Especially in a world that's changing so fast.
Exactly. And speaking of investing in people,
Yeah.
I loved this point about giving them the knowledge
Okay.
to understand the financials of the business.
Financial literacy?
Yeah,
That's huge.
it is. And so many companies just kind of like gloss over that.
They do.
But this article is saying like,
You got to give people the tools.
yeah, give them the tools and the knowledge.
to understand how the business works.
Yeah, like costs, capacity, utilization, profitability.
Right, like how to read a balance sheet.
Yeah, how to understand a P&L statement.
Yeah, because when you have that knowledge,
It changes everything.
it does. Your day-to-day work takes on a whole new meaning.
Exactly. You're not just showing up and punching the clock.
Right.
You understand how your role contributes to the company's success.
You see the bigger picture.
And that's empowering.
It's incredibly empowering.
And when people feel empowered,
yeah.
they're more likely to be engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Innovative.
More commit.
So it's like a win-win all around.
It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. And then they talked about the importance of internal innovation
Oh, yeah.
and how relying too much on external sources
Can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Like it can stifle your own creativity.
Yeah. It's like that old saying,
What's that?
give a man a fish and you feed him for a day.
Yeah.
Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
I love that.
And it's the same with innovation.
Right.
You've got to teach your company to fish.
To innovate from within.
Yeah. To come up with their own solution.
To build that internal capability.
And that brings us back to leadership.
Yeah.
Because the article talks about the CEO as being this like
Yeah.
bridge,
Gosh.
yeah, between the external world,
Okay.
all those global trends, customer needs, competitive landscape,
Right. All the stuff happening outside the park.
and the internal workings of the organization.
So they're like a translator,
Yeah,
taking all that external information
Yeah.
and turning it into something that the team can actually use.
exactly. And they said that the best CEOs are not just strategists,
Right.
but they're also executors.
They get things done.
Yeah, they can envision the future and then roll up their sleeve
I'll make it happen.
and make it happen. Yeah, and they inspire others to do the same.
Inspiration is key.
And then they had this part where they were kind of like
Yeah.
calling people out a little bit
Oh, yeah. What for?
for getting too caught up in appearances,
Oh, yeah.
like those flashy presentations
Ha.
that are all style and no substance.
All sizzle, no steak.
Yeah, and they're basically saying,
Like, don't be fooled by the smoke and mirrors.
yeah, real progress comes from asking tough questions,
Challenging assumptions.
getting your hands dirty.
Digging deep.
Yeah, and not being afraid to have those, like,
Uncomfortable conversations.
yeah, the tough conversations.
Yeah, because that's how you get to the real issues.
That's how you find the real solutions.
And that's how you make real progress.
And then they talked about the power of teaching
Oh, yeah.
as a way to learn.
That's one of my favorite topics.
It's so powerful.
It is.
Because when you try to teach something to someone else,
Yeah.
you really have to understand it yourself.
You have to know it inside and out.
Yeah, and you have to be able to explain it
In a way that makes sense.
in a way that's clear and concise.
And engaging.
Yeah, and so it really forces you to, like, think deeply about the material.
To master it.
Yeah, and I love that they brought that up.
Me too.
And then they talked about celebrating individuality,
Ah, yes.
which I thought was so important
It is.
because not everyone thrives under the same expectations.
Right.
We all have different strengths,
Different ways of working.
different needs, different
Sure.
perspectives, and
Yes.
trying to force everyone into the same box.
It's just not going to work.
It's counterproductive.
It stifles creativity.
It makes people miserable.
It kills innovation.
Yeah, so this article is really advocating for a more
Yeah.
flexible, personalized approach.
One that recognizes and values individual differences.
Yeah, and creates a culture where everyone feels
Yeah.
seen, heard, valued.
Safe to be themselves.
Yeah, and that's how you unlock true potential.
Absolutely.
So this article has been like a whirlwind of insights.
It has.
And I'm really curious to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah.
What stands out to you most from everything we've covered?
You know, after all what really sticks with me from this article is how much it focuses on the human side of things.
Yeah,
Like, it's not just about changing systems or processes. It's about people.
Yeah.
It's about how they feel, how they connect. It's
Yeah.
about building those relationships,
Mhm.
fostering trust and creating this environment where everyone feels like they can actually contribute.
Right.
Like their ideas are valued, their voices are heard.
It's about bringing people along on the journey.
Exactly. It's not just, here's the new software, good fault.
Right.
It's about understanding their needs, their concerns, their aspirations,
Yeah.
and finding ways to support them through the change.
Yeah.
And that actually leads perfectly into this last point they made, which I
Yeah.
thought was super interesting.
Yeah.
It's about the power of teaching
Oh, yeah.
as a way to, like, really deepen our own understanding of something.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So think about something you're trying to learn right now.
Okay.
Could be anything. A new skill, a concept,
Mm-hmm.
even just like a tricky situation you're dealing with at work.
Okay.
Now imagine you had to teach that to someone else.
Okay.
Like really break it down for them step by step.
Mm.
How would you do it?
Hmm.
What examples would you use? What stories would you tell?
Yeah.
What questions would you anticipate from them?
It's funny you say that because just even thinking about it that way
Yeah.
makes me realize I don't understand it as well as I thought I did.
Haha.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Like it really forces you to think about it from a different angle.
Totally. And that's the people of teaching. It's not just about imparting knowledge to someone else.
Right.
It's also about deepening your own understanding.
Yeah.
Because when you have to explain something to someone else in a way that they can grasp,
Right.
you have to really grapple with it yourself. You have to identify any gaps in your own knowledge.
Right.
And you have to come up with creative ways to make it clear and engaging.
Like that light bulb moment when you suddenly see things from a whole new perspective.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into embracing transformation,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with that challenge.
Okay.
What can you teach? What can you learn?
Yeah.
And how can you use this incredible tool of teaching to fuel your own growth?
I love that. And I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground today, from customer centricity to leadership to the power of individual contributions.
We've explored the evolving role of the CEO, the need for continuous learning.
Yeah, and the importance of fostering a culture of innovation. And most importantly, we've been challenged to think about how we can all embrace transformation.
Yeah.
Not as a one-time event, but as an ongoing journey of growth and discovery.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
We hope you found it valuable and thought-provoking.
And we'll see you next time.